Hey everyone, lots of Bat and Gotham comics this week. I got 4 of them. I got 17, maybe 18 comic books this week. But I have managed to read these 4 Bat-related books. And I was on the verge of just folding my Batman books back into my just regular comic book thoughts. I've got so many comics this week, and I really enjoyed Batman Eternal this week, and it was Batman Eternal that initially inspired me to do a weekly Batman book, a weekly Batman video, along with Joshua Hayes and some other people getting me more hooked into Batman. But then lately, I think at this past few weeks where we've realized they haven't taken the Batman Eternal thing as seriously as we thought, in the sense that, Batman Eternal was supposed to be this sort of spine of the Bat universe that was gonna, as Scott Snyder said, put everything where put Gotham where he wants it to be, while telling other stories at the same time. That was how they originally talked about it. It seemed like halfway through Batman Eternal, they're in too much of a rush to go to the Batman where they want it to be, the Gotham where they want it to be. So they rushed out Catwoman and rushed out Gotham Academy and jumped ahead in the regular Batman book. Who knows where Batman and Robin fits in. And it's silly, I guess, for such continuity things to affect me, but maybe because of the whole way it was set up and everything, and it just felt like not only a big spoiler to Batman Eternal, but also just pushing Batman Eternal off to the side in this whole process, along with the fact that Batman Eternal itself has been very sketchy at points. So, but despite all of that, I just had a really fun time reading this Batman Eternal. I think it helped me get over my disappointment from last week. Last week was not a bad issue. It's just the way it fell and all those things I've already said. It just came off to me as unexciting and maybe rushed too. Last week. I really loved the art. It's same art team, same scripter too, actually. But for me, Fernando Pasarin is a very nice Batman artist. Very mainstream. Some people have said he's kind of 90s. He's a bit old-fashioned. But to me, mostly in a good way. Just good, solid comic book storytelling. And, very clear and gives you... I don't know. Some people have been complaining about the backgrounds, but I don't know. It all looks good to me. Fantastic colors by Blonde. So I think the highlight of this issue was the Alfred Bane team up, which they have on the cover. Makes Alfred seem very cool. It was just kind of an amusing pairing that just made it extra cool. I liked the return of Spoiler, and that Spoiler is coming face to face with Hush. And I don't know. I guess this implies more strongly that the shadowed figure that Spoiler saw talking with her dad, really was Hush, or really was the person who's dressing as Hush right now. So that, it's still quite possible that Hush is a different person under there. I would assume Batman would recognize his voice, but maybe not. What was I going to say? I'd say for me, so this, which is, I'll try to remember to link below Joshua Hayes' review of this. He hated this issue, and all of his points were valid, mostly about plot contrivances, things they do to hit their plot points that really aren't well thought out, and maybe even undercut undercut our feeling about Batman. I did notice some of what he was saying even before he said it, but much more after he said it. But what bothered me was this idea of all these criminals are escaping from Arkham, and Batman can take them all down sort of in an instant. He's prepared for each one. That's kind of cool, the way Batman's always prepared for everything. But it also makes it seem like none of these people, like, it's not Dr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze, and Clayface, and others, are really any challenge for Batman. He can take them down in half a page. So when they appear in other times, does that mean, these are eliminated as people who can challenge Batman? That's there's kind of this cool fantasy of Batman that sometimes we get, that he has so much tech, so much gear, he's thought everything out, every possibility, so he can tell his bat plane to do things. He's got satellites, he's got little zappers and stuff for each bad guy. It's really cool to think of him that way, but ultimately it seems to kind of make it's like the Superman problem. He becomes too powerful, too unbeatable, and then I start to wonder, seeing him do all this amazing stuff, how Hush has really, or whoever is behind Hush, how these people have stayed so many steps ahead of him. They haven't been convincingly clever enough, given how amazing Batman is. But at the same time, it's fun to see Batman be amazing like that. So in this issue, I really enjoyed that. But, Josh is right. If Batman has this face and body recognition software that works from a satellite watching Gotham, then he could always find people. And why hasn't he, been able to track down Hush and all these other people a lot sooner? That was maybe a little over the top. But they probably, couldn't think of any other quick way to get Batman to this scene with Spoiler and Hush by the beginning of next issue. I'm hoping, we got so much awesome Alfred stuff, and I'm really kind of been enjoying Penny 2 in the mix, so I'm hoping, and it's looking like, at least while Ray Fox is writing it, that we'll get more of that, because that's been a rich vein of this story for me. So, on to the other strictly Batman issue. I shiver with chagrin at this Lego cover. It so doesn't fit this kind of dark, brooding story that we've been getting with this wonderful John Paul Leon artwork. I really wanted the original cover, and all they had left, because I made it to my comic book store, I guess, at 6 at night. I guess on the day on Wednesday, they already are sold out of the regular covers. I don't know if DC is pushing all these covers on them, or they over-order the number of Lego covers. I notice them often stiffing me with alternative covers I don't want on things that are on my pull. Anyway, Detective Comics isn't on my pull, so I had to take what I could get. And this is a two-part story by this guest writer, guest artist, and then we're going to go back to the Manapool team. The last issue was just incredibly beautiful, very minimalistic in terms of dialogue or words or anything. This one gets much wordier, much more complicated. They basically have to tell 8/10 of the story in this issue, and it did feel rushed, particularly the last few pages. We just sort of, I've caught the bad guy, bam, then it's over. Crisis averted. We're many hours later. We skipped to many hours later with our happy ending. I still enjoyed the art. It would have been nice if somehow there was real detective work that Batman did to solve the problem, because really what he did to solve the problem was call Dick Grayson, who conveniently was busy torturing, in his role in Spiral, I guess he tortures people, busy torturing somebody who just happened to be someone you would want, who would have information on the eco-terrorist or whatever he is, on this eco-terrorist and his location. And his clue led Dick Grayson to a nightclub that just happened to be nearby, I guess, where he could get the final piece of information which would quickly solve Batman's problem. And I had I guess realistically in spy agencies maybe they're busy torturing people all the time, or they certainly are on TV or whatever. So, Dick Grayson has been applying, car battery electricity to, probably to this guy's testicles. And now that they have to speed up his torturing to find out what Batman wants, they start pulling out his teeth with pliers. Maybe Dick Grayson did this a lot as Nightwing. I didn't read Nightwing, but it doesn't feel like a hero I can respect so much. Does Benjamin Percy believe that torture is an incredibly effective way of solving crimes? Let's get our police pulling people's teeth and electrocuting their testicles and stuff. Why not, if it really works? They say that torture doesn't usually yield us effective information. Maybe that may or may not be true. I don't know. I don't respect people who use torture. Maybe I'd torture Adolf Hitler or something like that, but generally speaking, I would choose the high road and not torture people, and so I want my heroes to be that way. Especially when it's just taken for granted that it's just a great way, a great way to work. I guess it's supposed to show us how tough Dick Grayson is and how tough everybody is, but it just left a bad taste in my mouth. I guess I always have a particular issue against torture anyway because it's just awful. It plays it's too real to me, maybe. Dick Grayson in Grayson doesn't do any torturing. There's a whole boarding school Harry Potter vibe to it, kind of like Gotham Academy. It's kind of funny that that's sort of happening in two places at once in the Bat universe. This was a really good issue. It was kind of a quieter moment in the plot of Grayson. It mostly took place on the campus of this girls' school where Spiral is hidden. It had incredible visuals from Michael Janin and his colorist, Cox. I believe his name is Jeremy Cox. I kind of thought we'd get more of this big action scene in the front, but that's just like a day in the life, and then he's, back at work. It made more clear that the people in this organization know that Dick Grayson was Nightwing. And that confuses me. I didn't read the Nightwing issue leading into this. How can they know he's Nightwing, know he's Dick Grayson, and trust him, because their whole goal is to uncover who all the bad guys are, who all the superheroes are, and expose their identities. B, if they know he's Nightwing and know he's Dick Grayson, they must connect two and two and figure he can lead them to the identities of a lot of people, especially Batman. So, that's my only sort of flaw with this series. I really enjoy this series. I feel like the two writers are doing a really good, Celie and King are doing a really good job of creating this undercover spy story and the kind of weird detachment from emotions that you would have to have as a spy, but still emotional stuff going on, but it's all under the layers. The art is fabulous, as I already said. Another fly in the ointment is that we keep returning to Midnighter. I feel like they must have been ordered to put Midnighter in this series. Midnighter is the Batman-like character from Stormwatch, from the Wildstorm universe that they brought into the DC universe. So I guess he's slowly moving in on Spiral and on Dick Grayson. It's hard to even know at this point. And I guess Stormwatch is still going, and he's also a member of Stormwatch, because there's a whole thing with Apollo showing up and asking him to, get back to work with Stormwatch and stop doing whatever it is he's doing. But yeah, this is another one of my favorite DC comics. Probably the best of these three, although I really enjoyed Batman Eternal just because, after really kind of a lot of up and down issues, really enjoyed it being what to me was a really strong issue. And then kind of an outlier for me is Gotham Academy, which doesn't directly have Batman in it yet. Yet again, the Bat Signal makes a big appearance, and it's kind of hovering over the characters' lives that they live in Gotham, and that it's Batman's city, and the history and the criminals and all of that. I wasn't gonna keep getting this, but then I read issue 1 with my daughter, and she loved it. She loved especially the double-page spread that was a diagram of what different people were doing in different parts of the school grounds. She's 6, as many of you know. She's going through a phase where she's fascinated by the idea of middle school and high school. So stories about middle school and high school that are accessible to her are very interesting to her. So I picked up the second issue, and I haven't read it with her yet. I have to say I liked this issue better. I might be getting more used to the animation stills style artwork. It could be stills from a Disney movie or an anime movie or a cross between the two. It didn't bother me quite as much as before. The coloring still bothers me at times because they so try to make it look like an animated, what do they call the backgrounds in the animated movies where they do a sort of painted background. Yeah, I have a much more positive feeling just knowing my daughter really likes it. We'll see if maybe she'll find this issue more boring since I found it more interesting. But there's still the central mystery of the story is something that all the characters in the story know, we just don't know, which is, what is it that happened to Olive Silverlock over the summer that was so terrible and has changed everything in her life? So to me, that's an odd reading experience. It's clumsy, klutzy. If it were something that the main character didn't know or something like that, I don't know. It just doesn't quite click. I can imagine stories where you do hide some information about the character working. But just in this case, it doesn't work for me. I think I still don't totally believe in this school. They want to give it kind of a mysterious fantasy vibe, but it's also a real boarding school in a real city for real kids going to high school, rich kids presumably, and it just doesn't feel that serious. There's probably a generation now of creators who grew up as kids with Harry Potter, and maybe they kind of take a kind of school story for granted, and I want more to make me believe in it. I mean, J.K. Rowling really made me believe in her boarding school story. but I just don't quite buy into it here. I suppose I don't even totally buy into it in Grayson. In Grayson, there's this boarding school that is training assassins, and is kind of a cover for Spiral's headquarters are also hidden there, although it's just a girls' school. That's a little weird when you think about it, but also kind of cool when you think about it. A cool gimmick. So, but I don't take the school part of it very seriously. If I had to stop and think about it, if it was focused too much on the school, I might have the same problems with it I do with Gotham Academy. Anyway, I thought I mentioned the last 2 issues of Future's End have a lot of Batman in them. Future's End still continues to be really good. It's constructed in a completely different way than Batman Eternal, so it just always has a very consistent feeling to it. You know, there may be some issues where the focus isn't on the characters you'd like them to focus on, but all in all, it kind of chugs along and continues well. So in issue 26 is the first time I think we've had Bruce Wayne Batman show up, and he's a bit of a jerk, but in a way that makes sense. And I guess you can sort of tell in his costume that maybe it's holding him together, because we do know from the Batman Future's End one-shot, that his body is a total wreck and he's barely holding it together and he's busy making clones of himself. We don't actually get any of that in this Future's End. He's more a figure coming out of the shadows for other characters to meet. And then in this issue, he meets with Batman Beyond. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, and I'm really looking forward to see where that goes, presumably in the next issue, because it's near the end of this issue that Batman and Batman Beyond come face to face. There's also a strong plot line with Tim Drake, who goes under another name, the name of Cal now. And he's getting tangled up with Lois Lane, kind of sends Lois Lane on a mission. And meanwhile, Batman Beyond is looking for him because he feels like Tim Drake is some kind of key to solving some problems. And he knows from the future that Tim Drake won't exist in the future, which I thought was also an interesting kind of twist on that. So anyway, there's some interesting that stuff going on in here for people who might want to pick up the trades in the future. I think a lot of the people who don't like Future's End don't like it because it's mostly about DC B characters, and very few of the A characters show up. Slowly Batman and Clark Kent are showing up here and there. But I sort of like the B threads more. It doesn't make any sense commercially that they would do this big series focused mostly on B heroes, but I enjoy it, and as long as they can keep doing it and doing it well, I'm a big fan of Future's End. Okay. I gotta get back to work. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.